What's up, everybody? Welcome to the first episode of the Bronx Pinstripe Show of 2023. Scott, I'm going to do something unorthodox and start with an email. I think you're going to like this email. It's from our buddy Lee Jones. He says, Happy New Year. I just decided that any work colleagues I don't engage with this week won't be getting a Happy New Year at the start of the subsequent messages, emails from Monday onwards. And it reminded me of your irritation about this and also Scott's joy at your misery. So yeah, Happy New Year to you and yours. I want to officially pick the date.
All of the above, Lee. Good job. You're going to pick a date because this is a whole thing.
Every year,
people have been listening to the show. They understand that one, Andrew gets annoyed at everything, and two, that this actually, I'm going to pull that back a little bit. New Year's resolution time. I'm going to pull that back, Andrew, because ever since Harrison has come around, things have gotten better. I think with the optimism and the outlook, the general outlook on things. I don't know if you feel that way, but I do feel that way.
I think it's just perspective, right? It's like you went through this.
Well, yeah, perspective definitely changes.
You went through this when Kemp was born. It's just like your perspective on everything changes, and some of the other things you're just like, well, maybe that's not as important.
It just doesn't matter as much. It's very
true.
So
I think,
thanks, Lee.
New Year Day being on the 1st, but then Monday, basically
New Year Day or New Year's Day
being on the 1st, and then the 2nd was the observed day. That kind of throws a wrench into things. And I usually give 2 full work weeks. But then you do that and you got MLK Day on the 16th. So this, like, the holidays are really throwing this off. I kind of want to pick January 13th, which is essentially 2 full work weeks. If you don't get your Happy New Year in to your colleagues and everyone by the 13th,
that's Friday
of the second week. When you come back on the 17th, because you probably have MLK Day off, I know a lot of people do, even if you don't. When you come back on the 16th to the 17th,
refrain.
No, it's not happening.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair.
Yeah.
Pretty fair. So now that the line has been drawn, and please everybody mark your calendars for January 17th for wishing Andrew a happy New Year.
Great. Can't wait. We are doing New Year's resolutions on this episode. And we thought it would be fun to go take a look back at our ones from last year, because we did them last year. What were the 2022 Yankees New Year's resolutions? And I got to say, our bold predictions might not be very accurate.
Whoa. My bold predictions were pretty fucking good this year.
Well, our New Year's resolutions were really, really fucking good this year. And we'll quickly go through them, and we can just reflect. So the first one was see the changes Brian Cashman alluded to in his end-of-year press conference. He at the end of the 2021 playoffs had that press conference talking about big changes. I wanted big-ass changes. You wanted personnel change. We talked about Glaber, needing a change. And I mean, there were a lot of changes, right? Like lots of changes. The biggest one in catching. And that was another one.
And they didn't stop. They didn't stop at the beginning of the season too, which I appreciate. And now, not to say that they all worked out, because they didn't, unfortunately, but I appreciate the effort for change.
Right. And that's what we wanted is we understood change might not work out, but if you just keep running the same thing back and it fails again, then that's just unacceptable. Right. And so, and I think that for every year, if you identify problems and you just decide, let's run it back next year and hope it changes, well, you're just not doing a good job.
That is a concept. I will say that is a concept that I think a lot of people have a hard time with, because when they see change, when they ask for change in their minds, they expect that change to work because it's different. It should work because the other thing didn't work. It's not it's not this or that. It's not, mutually exclusive. The new change can also not work, and in fact could dig you into a deeper hole if that new change is in a wrong direction. But I think the Yankees made some appropriate changes, and unfortunately, because of injury, things didn't work out.
They made changes, but it was also like, it wasn't even that we were saying you got to make changes because this didn't work for a short period of time. Like, it had not been working for many years. And the biggest one was the catching situation with Gary Sanchez. And we both said, grow a sack and make a decision with Gary Sanchez. Either be the starting catcher and stick to it, or move on from him. And they moved on from it. And
okay. So in the notes, there's a quote from me, which I have a problem with. And I don't know who pulled that quote, if it was Logan or Ilya, but it feels like it was taken out of context, because there's no possible way in a million years. And please call me on the bullshit if you're listening to the show, because it doesn't exist in this particular case. There's no way. And maybe I was being facetious in the sense. Ilya, can you please read the quote that is in the notes that I read? And I was like, what?
There is no extra
way I said that.
context to this.
Just read the
quote
quote,
is,
please.
given who's available, you're not going to get a better option than Gary Sanchez. Even if he's not the guy that we thought he could be, if he's 60% of that guy, you're looking at the best option.
Okay. The context in that was probably the conversation that led up to that quote. And when we're looking at talent, because that was a conversation that we always talked about with Gary Sanchez was talent. And when we're talking about 60% of the talent of Gary Sanchez, I stand by that. The guy is talented. He's oozing with talent. He just doesn't know how to use that talent. He's like a superhero that has all these powers and has no fucking idea how to use them. And that doesn't do anybody any good besides just waste a good superhero that just collects dust on a shelf. That's what I'm not saying Gary Sanchez is a superhero. That went down a different path.
We're going to revisit this a year from now.
Next month.
Now,
year,
part of the conversation was that you guys didn't want them to split time with Higgy and
that's exactly
Sanchez.
what it was. We wanted them.
You
to
wanted
make
them to commit to it, but you did
I
say you're not going to
remember-
get a better option.
No, because you wanted what's his name, Stallings, right? That was in your GM plans.
Yes, I did.
And
I
then-
wanted Stallings.
and then
That
he
was
got-
part of the.
He got moved, and so we were looking at the other
Yeah.
options. Like we didn't know who Jose Trevino was at this time last year, right? So
No, to be fair, there's
no
no
one
way.
thought
I
when
mean,
Jose Trevino comes in or Ben Rortvedt comes in, like on paper, those are not better options than Gary Sanchez, what Gary Sanchez could be. And I actually remember this
Correct.
conversation because it's a conversation we had a dozen times, is that don't dick around with him. If he's going to be the starting catcher, don't just make him the honorary starting catcher on opening day and then don't have him catch Garrett Cole ever again. Like stick to it. And that's, kind of a preview to one of our resolutions for this year. Make a decision, stick to it, commit, and then give it some time to breathe. And if it's not working, then make a change. But this flip-flopping was, I thought, really messing with Sanchez. And to your point, if he's 60%, 60% might be a little low, by the way. If he's 75, 80% of the guy from like 2016 to 2018, then you've got a really, really good catcher, borderline all-star catcher. So that was your point. And I think
offensively,
but even defensively, like we know the framing was an issue. And I mean, I truly believe
the framing was just a microcosm and like the visible reflection of what a shitty defensive catcher he is. He's got a hose. Like at the end of the day, he's got a hose.
I truly believe they messed him up. Like he was never going to be an elite defensive catcher like what we saw with Trevino this year, but he wasn't as bad as he ended up being back in 2017.
Here's the problem with that, and maybe this is a flip flop from another conversation as well, because the amount of things that we talk about this team, it's practically impossible to not flip flop. But with him, if you're looking at defensive metrics and early on you're like, okay, not so bad, but with catchers, if you stay in bad habits, they're going to get worse, especially with a guy that's not physically fleet of foot or a guy that is necessarily a great athlete. He's not that guy. So when you see bad mechanics and deteriorating mechanics and bad tendencies, those are going to get worse as he becomes older and gets deeper into his career. So if you don't fix them or attempt to fix them, then you're kicking the can down the road essentially with a guy like that defensively. So with them bringing in, name is
Swanson.
leaving me right now. Swanson, thank you, from Minnesota at the time. Like the guy was lauded as a defensive catching mind. Like he was one of the more influential voices for the position. And he was trying to make changes to a guy that does have the talent offensively and needed to be reshaped essentially defensively, because whether they worked or not, the old way was going to not be good for a long time. It was not going to be good. He was going to be a below average defensive catcher if he stayed in his old tendencies. So I understand why they did it. My problem was with him. I don't want to go down this road, but my problem was with him that he didn't commit to the change either.
It was just completely botched from both sides. Next one that we talked about was
I hated reading that quote though, I must say.
Stop with the "we're close" rhetoric from Boone. I don't think he completely got away from it. I think the fact that the Yankees were the best team in baseball for the first half of the season obviously made it more true.
Well,
it just changed how he was what he was saying and things he was saying. And then I think in the second half of the season, when the team was playing 500 baseball, there was a lot of talk about, well, look at the position we're in. We're still that team from the first half. So blah, blah, blah. The rhetoric from Boone is never going away. That's not in my resolutions from this year. I don't think it went away. And the fact that they did get closer this year is probably only going to make it worse next year. This one was big, and I remember, and they did it. We wanted them to come out in April with some urgency, because the past few years, really under Boone up until last year, they come out in April and they just look flat. And then you dig yourself a hole in April. You're playing sloppy baseball. You're making errors. You're making outs on the bases. You have a 500 or 2-game under 500 April, and that doesn't kill your season, but it's just like it's just you're losing to teams you shouldn't be losing to, and that's not what happened last year. They went 15-6 in April. They had a nice win streak in there, and they did come out with urgency, which was great. Then we talked about fundamentals, because this team was an absolute mess, and that's I think was the biggest change year over year, was the fundamentals, and they've really improved, because in 2021 the team was 29th in baseball in DRS at -41. Which is awful. 29th out of in the league, pretty much the bottom of the league. Then they bump up to number 1 in DRS, right? In 2022. So they went from bottom of the league to top of the league in DRS. And a big reason of that is Jose Trevino in the catching position.
Yeah. I mean, if you are not a fundamentally sound team, you have no chance of doing anything at the end of the day. Like, bottom line, like I make this analogy quite often, but it's your offensive line. You got to build that. You got to build the fundamentals. You got to build the core of that team. And then from there you can start, messing around with some flashy stats, flashy players, flashy objectives. But if your base is not solid, then you're not going to be sustainably a good team. And that's exactly why that is. So yeah, huge change, massive change. Congratulations on making that change in such a fast time too, because they really did flip it on its head and make sound changes.
Yeah. And Donaldson, for as much as we complained about him, was a good
fantastic
defender at third base. That was an upgrade over what they had with Gio at third base. Shortstop, obviously, even though shortstop ended up being a mess, the shortstop defense did get better last year. The outfield defense got better last year. So yeah, it was a change across the board. Continuing with the sort of trend of fundamentals, fewer strikeouts we wanted. They improved from they were the 6th most in the league in 2021. Then they improved to 13th most. So they were middle of the pack last year. I don't know that they're ever going to be lowest in the league or close to lowest in the league based on the players they have, but that is a pretty good improvement. Better execution with runners in scoring position is another thing we wanted. This one is also a huge change. So in 2021, they were 25th in baseball with a 92 WRC plus with runners in scoring position, which is below league average. That's a below league average offense when you have runners in scoring position. Then they moved up to 10th to 115 WRC plus, which is 15 points better than league average with runners in scoring position.
Yeah. I mean, you have ducks. Hey, we had guys in position. They just couldn't execute it before.
Ducks on the pond.
We had
traffic on the bases.
What was he saying?
Traffic
on the bases.
Traffic on the bases.
That was it.
Good.
That's what I'm looking for.
What did
another solid? But that goes also back to the type of player that you're bringing in, and the type of lineup that you're throwing out there, and how the balance of said lineup can affect scoring runs.
Because we were always joking, Luke Voigt called them donkeys on the bases, and it's like all the outs on the bases we also had a resolution in here about, and they improved on outs on the bases as well. So yeah, they were more traffic on the bases, fewer donkeys on the bases.
They use donkeys to go down the Grand Canyon on those like really tight trails, because they're just dumb and they just go and just follow the trail. Whereas a horse might see something. You got to put blinders on a horse. Horse might see something and just be like, I can get that, and fucking go, but
Good
donkeys
analogy.
will just go down the path.
Giancarlo Stanton, I wanted him to play at least 1/3 of his games in the outfield, and I didn't want to wait until July to start that. He did start in April in the outfield, which is great. And he ended up playing 36% of his games games started in the outfield last year. So they pretty much nailed the 1/3 thing. Obviously he dealt with injuries. So that was, I think a
Even
known
better.
risk.
I mean, it's actually the number is higher than if you're because of the what he dealt with.
It's
too.
a known risk with putting him in the outfield, but I don't think we have said this again. Like he was getting injured when he was just DHing, so at that point, just put him in the outfield a little bit. And
so this goes back to the load management question about the 1/3. Is the one? I guess the 1/3 was the design element of doing the load management. 36%.
36%. Nailed it.
Got it. Okay.
So with left field, it'll be interesting this year because I know that's like the biggest question mark with this current roster. If they don't bring in a left fielder, like he might get another 25-35% of his games in the outfield, which I wouldn't hate. This one they didn't come through on, but in the end it worked out. Give Aaron Judge an extension. Don't let it linger through the season. Oops. Get it done in spring training. Oops. Make him captain. Okay. Happened at the end of the day.
It did happen at the end of the day. They did not get it. Yeah. So, long way around there, but they got to it. They got to it. Left field. I just thought of something for left field. I'll save it for that discussion. But we had a pretty spirited conversation over chat.
Do you want to talk about it now?
A few days and last night.
Do you want to talk about it now so you don't forget?
Can you mention the last one?
The last resolution from last year was win the World Series, which they didn't listen.
So if they just listened to us on all of these, we'd be sitting here as champions, but they didn't. They didn't listen to us on the win the World Series part. I don't know why they didn't listen to us on that part. It's pretty much the most important piece of it. But yeah, we could put it back on there for this year.
Yeah, it's going to be back on there.
Well, Yankees brass, I know you're listening.
Well, I think
Brian
someone
Sabian
was listening last year because they did a lot of them.
Just listen to us on that last one too. Common sense department here. Follow through on all of them.
So we've got a bunch this year, a lot of player specific ones, which I like. The first one though is just general, and stop playing New York after losses. That's just a loser mentality. Like let do something different. Play Taylor Swift. I don't give a crap. Play Bieber after a loss. But just don't play anything. Play somber music after a loss. Don't play the tradition of New York after a loss. I hate that started. I know Logan hates that started. You lost. Don't be happy about it.
This is I was bringing up that this is a resolution show, but I wanted to also bring a little Festivus into this and air our grievances. And really the only thing I wanted to yell about was this. This was the biggest thing. Like my grievance for going into the season is a culture grievance. And this is a bad culture thing, in my opinion. This is a song that is cherished for Yankees victories. You think of it, you think of the Yankees winning. That's what you think of. Like there's a connection. It's like Pavlov's dogs winning. When you play it, when the Yankees lost, especially when the other team is celebrating a playoff win in your building, a hated rival in your building, and you're playing our song, the famed song in Yankee Stadium to their victory, something's wrong there. Common sense department. Just don't play it. Play Jay-Z. I don't give a shit what you do. Play another song that has the word New York in it. I don't give a rat's ass. Don't play Sinatra. Do not play that song. It is not a song that needs to be played in that. It's only for Yankee wins. That's it. It's really not that hard either.
For a period of time, didn't they play just other versions of New York after losses, and they would only play the Sinatra after wins? And then that changed as well, and they just always played Sinatra. It's like I don't remember all the details. Red Sox fans always mock that Fenway will play Sweet Caroline in the 8th inning, even if they're down by like 7 runs. It's like, guys, like read the room here. It's like we're getting our butts kicked, and you're going to play the Sweet Caroline and expect everyone to just stand up and start singing along.
That's different though. That's like a hype up song. You could look at that the other way. It's like a rally song even, or a celebration that you're kicking someone's ass. Like, okay. Yeah, it's a disgusting song when in the context. It's a shame because I actually do like the song itself, and it got ruined for me because of that. But it's different. It's not at the end of the game. It's not at the end of the game. It's not associated with winning the game.
The next resolution is huge, and it kind of goes into what we were talking about with Sanchez last year. It's pick a starting shortstop, make a decision. I want them to pick a starting shortstop in spring training after a battle, and stick to it and give it some time. And then by the All-Star break, they should have clarity on who the starting shortstop is. I don't want to see this back and forth where it's IKF starting a couple days a week and Volpe starting a couple days a week, or Volpe or Peraza starting. It's just enough with the ambiguity. I understand that IKF's on the roster. He can be the utility player. I know he will start at shortstop sometimes, but it should not be a split duty type of thing, because then you're going to find yourself in a position where you've got 4 different starting shortstops in an ALCS again.
Yeah, I mean, I want IKF to play shortstop occasionally purely so Logan has to look at it. I mean, I do like some negativity on the show. I like seeing other people in misery sometimes because it does lift my spirits occasionally. But yes, commit to the guy. And not only that, like this is a different situation from even the Gary Sanchez piece, because Gary Sanchez had been in the league for a couple of years and we're like, commit to him. We've seen what he could be. This is a situation now where you got Anthony Volpe. I'm going to say Anthony Volpe. All right. Let's just act like it's him. If it's him walking through, he wins the job or performs well in spring training, commit to the kid. We have established that the regular season in Major League Baseball is not as important as a lot of people think it is. There is time and room for development on the Major League level in today's game. There is. And when you are surrounded by the talent that the Yankees have, I don't know where you could get better development than at starting shortstop in New York at Yankee Stadium on the Major League level, surrounded by veterans that have been there, done that have talent. And the amount of pitching that you're going to see on the Major League level compared to another, you're going to see better pitching, actually. You'll probably see more fastballs. This is the reason why you see a power surge a lot of times, guys coming up from AAA, even AA sometimes, to the major leagues, because they're getting a more steady dose of strikes, and then also they're being attacked in the zone with fastballs because pitchers would rather go after those guys than the established veterans who they know will do damage. So Volpe, give him the time. Give him the time. If he's the guy, if the scouts and all the nerds would be like, this is the kid. This is the kid. That's what everybody's saying. This is the kid. Give him the job. Give him the job. Allow him to struggle and stick with him and allow him to go through the ups and downs so that post All-Star break, we are looking at a kid now who has been through the shit a little bit, who has gotten some really good experience in the first half of the season, because they don't need him to be an all-star at shortstop for them to be in first place in this division. They just don't need that. They need a kid to go out there, play good defense and adequate offensively. And if he's improving throughout the case and he's in a better spot second half of the season, that's only going to put them in a better position for the playoff that they are always talking about to get into. That's it. Just commit to it.
I agree.
He's got the talent.
I agree with you in the sense that you can do more development at the major league level now because the regular season has been diminished in importance thanks to the expanded playoffs. It's just the Yankees have never really done that, and they've always slow played prospects.
They did it with Derek Jeter.
Okay.
Well, I'm just saying.
It's 25.
He was a shortstop. He was a highly touted shortstop
ago
that came up.
Forever
It doesn't
ago.
matter. It doesn't matter. The guy that was the captain before now the current captain, no longer the existing captain. They did it with him.
Derek Jeter, and we understand now that he obviously could handle it. He could have handled everything. We hope Anthony Volpe can handle everything as well. I have seen them, though, in more recent history, slow play prospects, and instead of making the decision, they let the decision come to them. And then what ends up happening is no one wins the job, and you're just left in this sort of gray space where it's IKF one day, it's Peraza another day, and then Volpe might still be in the minors because no one was like the clear-cut winner, and it's like wasn't an easy slam dunk for them. Logan, you had something to add?
Yeah, I think when it comes to the Yankees and prospects, I think they only slow play guys they don't actually believe in. Because when they believed in Glaber and they wanted Glaber to come up and be the second baseman, he came up and he was the second baseman.
Well, they traded for him too. It's a little different.
But that's a decent example. That's a decent example.
No, because he was a top prospect. I mean, same thing with Sanchez and Judge. I know that was in a different time, but it was.
Well, they slow played Judge. Judge was 25 when he came up.
They also sold off the entire year when they did that.
Yeah, but think about it, like, when everybody was screaming like, bring Justice Sheffield up because we need pitching, and they were like,
Justice Sheffield.
They were like, they didn't believe in him, and then they traded him for value.
They brought up Severino. And they
if you go through it and you say, okay, well, the prospects that they brought up, they believe in, and then the prospects that they didn't really believe in, they slow played because they were trying to trade them. Like maybe they just truthfully don't believe in Peraza that much. They believe in Volpe and they don't believe in Strauss.
I'm not sure I really buy into that narrative, honestly, because I think there's opportunity that goes into that. There's context that goes into that. I understand what you're saying. And the Yankees traditionally, at the end of the day, just I think have mishandled a lot of their minor league prospects since the 90s when they were so successful in that. But when's the last time we've seen a shortstop come up through the system that's been this highly ranked and this highly thought of, not only with the Yankees, but throughout baseball?
Eduardo Nunez?
That's who I was thinking about, but that's the guy that was supposed to take over for Jeter at one point, but he wasn't never highly touted.
No, of course,
this.
and I was
Volpe's the guy.
I know. Logan's point though, like with Jackson Frazier, formerly Clint Frazier, they didn't believe in him because they constantly were just like giving him a chance, and then it would 2 weeks he wasn't hitting, go back to Brett Gardner.
It's because he's a mental head case.
Yes, but they didn't believe in him. It doesn't matter if they don't
first name.
It doesn't matter if they. So did Giancarlo Stanton, by the way. It doesn't matter.
Well, for different reasons.
That was one of his names. I mean,
Jackson, he's just trying to celebrate his heritage.
Jackson. I thought Jackson was Clint's middle name. No,
is it his middle name?
Yeah, but he's flip flopping. It's like me going by Gregory now. I'm not doing it.
I don't think everyone knows that.
That's true.
It's a long time to figure that out.
I just took like a whole stunt. Yeah, Scott's my middle name. It's always been my middle
We've been
name.
doing this,
but I've always gone by Scott. I'm not flip-flopping.
We've been doing this.
In fact, it pisses me off because at anything I have to, the doctor's office, insurance, the DMV, everywhere. It's a pain in my ass because I tell them my name. I'm like, oh yeah, my bad, not my name.
We've been doing this show since 2015. It's now 2023. That's a long time. I bet there's longtime listeners that did not know your real name is Greg.
Yeah, well, I don't know where the hell that was going, but yes, that's Jackson Frazier was he's a free agent. We need a left fielder. Maybe Jackson Frazier is the guy now. I don't know. You have to get him off.
You could re-sign him.
His little new shoe.
You could re-sign him and just trick fans, being like, "No, it's a different guy."
Different guy. It's not the same guy. What are you talking about?
The next resolution is play more even keeled over the season because. Yes, they finished with 99 wins last year, but they were a 696 team in the first half and a 500 team in the second half. Like, just be a little bit more consistent.
It's easier said than done for sure. I believe that they attempted that.
Of course,
first of all,
they don't go and try and play 500 baseball.
Well, they also were all world. They were on pace to break win records in Major League Baseball in the first half. But that's a pretty high.
Even if you have a 696 first half, maybe have a 560 second half.
No, they were Jekyll and Hyde. There's no doubt. They were Jekyll
have a 560 or a 550 second half, and then you win 103 games. And we're not talking in early September about them possibly blowing the division because they've got a 9-game lead and they're coasting.
At the end of the day, I believe in the premise of this resolution. They need to play consistently, and that goes to. There's a lot of things that go into that, but yes, consistency is a major piece.
This one is for Judge. We've got
consistent with messaging and the way that they go about things too. This goes back to Volpe. Be consistent with, your commitment to a young guy. This is the time to let young guys shine. Be consistent.
We've got a couple of Judge ones. The first one is don't beat yourself. And I don't even know if that's the case. It's I would say stay locked in to your approach. Because at the end of the season, he was chasing the 60-second home run, which I completely understood. But he moved away from his approach, which all season was working, and had him hitting, near the top of the league for the batting title. If it was out of the strike zone, he was spitting on it, and he was walking a ton. And then when the pitcher came in the zone, he made them punish with a home run or a double or something like that. And then at the end of the season, he just wanted to hit the home run, which, again, I understood. But that bled into the postseason where you're going to be facing better pitching, and Cleveland pitching has always owned Judge. But he had a 40% strikeout rate in the 2022 postseason.
Yeah, it's bad. And the other piece of that is he was pressing, I think, too, because his guys around him just weren't doing their job either. So there were other components of him. Yes, he was chasing because he was getting the home run. He wasn't getting very many pitches either. So I think that he was probably expanding the zone to look for more opportunity to do
Especially
damage.
Wanted to do it at home. And I remember that last series was against Baltimore, right? Where he was chasing because he wanted to hit the home run at home.
Yeah, and if he takes a walk there, like pretty goddamn good chance that nothing happens on the production side for the New York Yankees.
Well, it was also I think at that point the Yankees weren't necessarily even playing for anything. So it's like, yeah, you take the walk there, which is what you would normally do, but let's just try and hit the home run.
Yeah.
But
At the end of the day, you don't want a lull. You don't want a lull year coming back, which, a hangover year, which happens to teams when they find a lot of success sometimes. And then I think players too. Like you're right. He found the consistency, not only with on the field, but I would say everything off the field too, because the man stayed healthy. He was on the field a lot, which goes to his conditioning and everything around that. Just stay consistent, stay at it. And he's got the mentality. Like if anybody I believe is going to do that, it's him.
My other resolution for Judge is don't wear the C on your jersey. I don't think it's going to happen because he wasn't wearing the C in the press conference on the jersey when it was announced. So I would be very, very surprised if he comes out in spring training with the C on his jersey, but don't be Jason Varitek.
No, but also a different time. Like that's inventory now. You can't. That's inventory that takes.
You could wear it on your arm patch or something. Like there's other places you could wear it. I don't want it anywhere. Nothing on your hat. Nothing. Don't face paint a C on your cheek with eye black. Like nothing.
Why not? Oh, I'd be okay with that. Just every day. What if Rizzo painted the C on his face?
It's just in a different spot. It's just everyone.
But he didn't do it.
Else, like every day, a new player, new teammate does the C on his face.
Yeah. Like anointing him captain for every single game with a C on his cheek.
Okay, I could get behind that. But anything else, no. Frankie Montas, play with a chip on your shoulder. Whatever it is. Frankie Montas, play with a chip on your shoulder and not a chip in your shoulder.
Yeah, that would be nice. Who knows if he can control that, but that would be nice. Let's be the guy. Be the guy that the Yankees brass think you can be.
Well, can he be what he was in Oakland from 2021 through the first half of 2022, which was 51 starts to a 3.3 ERA, a 3.37 FIP, and 9.75 strikeouts per 9 inning, and less than a home run allowed per 9 inning, and a 44% ground ball rate? Because that's a really, really good top of the rotation pitcher.
When did he get popped?
When
did he get popped?
2019 or something, like, wasn't it? Can you guys look up when he got popped for steroids? Yeah, it was like 2019 or something.
All right, so we've seen relatively sustained success after that, before the injury. That's an important piece, I think, here, because not only did they get a guy who was hurt, but they got a guy who had popped for the juice also. Be that guy. Be the guy that doesn't have an arm problem, a shoulder problem, and be able to go out there and throw 175 innings.
That would be amazing.
That's what he should be.
That's what he should be. That's what you traded for. You traded for him to be the number 2 starter. He's not going to be the number 2 starter in this rotation with all of the guys they have. He's going to be the number 5 starter in this rotation.
Great. If he's the number 5 starter or number 4 starter, and he's able to come back to a 3-3 guy and someone that actually is getting over a strikeout an inning. Amazing. 44% ground ball rate. Yes, that's the guy.
Yeah. So it was
please be that
June
guy.
of 2019 that he got popped for the steroids. And then it was an 80-game suspension. He came back and was very good after that. All right, next one.
COVID year, then injury.
Yeah. Oh, I know. It's been it hasn't been the most consistent thing. Like
hasn't been that long since the pop either. If you actually break down the amount of games.
He's the last year. What's up, Logan?
I also didn't realize he was like a White Sox.
That's just like bad. That's just like leaves.
Yeah,
a bad
it's
taste
just
in your
bad
mouth.
vibes.
Just
Totally bad vibes.
Well, so is Rodon. Got a couple
but
White Sox in the rotation.
I remember Rodon as a White Sox. Frankie Montas pitched 7 games, and it was like he gone.
Yeah. Well,
the next one's for Anthony Rizzo. It's take advantage of no shifts this year, because in 2022 he had a 216 batting average on balls in play, and his career average is 278. So we think the theory is that is going to creep back up towards his career average with no shift, and his batting average is going to go up a lot, which is going to be huge for the lineup and for Rizzo. And, when Steinbrenner was talking about we need more contact guys in this lineup, Rizzo's a contact guy, and he can be a contact guy.
So this goes back to a conversation I think we've had in the past, but it's, does he really need to change much?
No, I don't think so.
Isn't that, yeah. So it's really not him taking advantage of no shift. It's just him being himself and the shift helping him.
That's a better way. Continue to be yourself and trust that the batting average on balls in play will go back towards your career average, which
there's going to be more green, baby, more green for you to take advantage of. And so staying with that approach, staying consistent with that approach is a good thing. And I don't see anything, he's a pretty consistent guy in that way. So I expect that. I certainly expect him to be himself. And then we're just going to see a more positive outcome because of the shift not happening.
Clay Holmes, we want him to lock down the back of the bullpen. Now, this one's interesting because I think Loaisiga is a candidate to also lock down the back of the bullpen with how he performed at the end of the season and how shaky Holmes was at times. These numbers, when I knew they were bad and drastic, but when I looked them up yesterday, I was blown away. Clay Holmes, through June, 1.2 walks per 9 innings. From July 1 through the rest of the season, 5 walks per 9 innings.
What does that say to you, though?
Mechanics, injury, just not
injury.
right. Like, not right in general.
Yes.
But, like, he always
right
struggled with walks. Even that was always an issue with Holmes when back in Pittsburgh, when the Yankees got him, it was his command and his sinker, which can get out of control sometimes, right? Like, you aim for the middle of the plate, and if a guy spits on it, it might not be a strike. But you cannot be, never mind a short reliever in middle innings, you can definitely not be a closer with 5 walks per 9 innings.
It's funny because they're very different players, but and honestly, you could say this about everybody. But when you have such when you print high success at what you're doing, you look at like the downfall of it. Adam Ottavino was a similar guy. When Ottavino was around the strike zone and he threw that frisbee that would start at the dugout and then end at the other dugout, and he would throw that thing for a strike, he was nasty. And you saw him actually improve last year with the Mets because of he was around the strike zone more. When you start losing that strike zone, all of your stuff is just not it's just not as good. It's just pure. Now Holmes has much better stuff in my opinion. He's got just better hard late action, a different type of pitcher. And when you are coming back from an injury, I think one of the hardest things to regain is consistency with the mechanics. And like you said, with a history of not being able to throw strikes, or that being one of his issues, if you can't get back to those good consistent mechanics, and that's due to injury or if you're counterbalancing something, that's a problem. So first and foremost, this man needs to be healthy. Needs to have a good solid spring training, and I'm not talking about result wise. I'm talking about
the injury. But the injury thing with him was weird because the first IL stint, we were all like, "That's a phantom IL." Because remember, even his comments, he's like, "Yeah, I guess I'm hurt." Didn't he say something like weird like that with his back? Where he's like, "Yeah, we'll see. I guess it's my back." Like the MRI showed. We thought it was like a fake IL stint, and then there was like a later IL stint where he was actually hurt. So it was really bizarre with what happened with him.
The thing with a pitcher though is like when you're looking at such a small percentage of missed chances, and when you have anything that's off that feels different, and you have to change something slightly because of a discomfort or whatever it is. We've seen blisters completely change guys, obviously because of the grip. Little things like that. The amount of pressure you could put on something because of a physical pain, then yeah, you're gonna see a difference, and it's probably not going to be like this glaring injury that's big. So need him to be healthy, need him to be to find that consistent mechanic, because that's clearly huge.
We got a couple for the front office. So Brian Cashman needs to prepare for some creativity with this roster and get I don't know, trick someone into taking Hicks or trick someone into taking Donaldson. Like he tricked the Padres into taking back Chase Headley many years ago.
Your boy. Yeah. Prepare for creativity. I like it. I still think there's an opportunity out there to get rid of Donaldson if you can be creative. So I would love that. And as spring training is getting closer and closer, you might see teams a little bit more desperate, or might see teams a little bit more realistic as to what their actual outcome can and will be. The Colorado Rockies. And maybe they'll make moves that will help them get into a better position for success in 2-3 years, rather than trying to do something weird for 1 year, probably not even going to be competing for a wild card. Just commit to the organization, commit to the future, and give us Chris Bryant.
I would love for Steinbrenner to take the Cohen approach to the luxury tax and say, who cares? What's the difference? They're up against the last penalty right now. Their projected salary, their projected luxury tax payroll on Fangraphs is $291.7 million. The top tax is $293 million. That's really, I mean, that's basically done then. Unless you're moving money away, you can't really do anything. That's where you are. So just say F it. Just go over for this year and this team. Like you need to win the World Series. Just go over. Who cares?
I would argue that this resolution's already come true. They've pushed through different, this is just the next one to go through.
It's come true, but
but I'm saying that they've committed to spending money. They've committed to spending money.
I'm not saying they're being cheap.
They haven't.
But if you're going to go up to this, just go over. Because what do we say? The worst place to be, not that this is where the Yankees are, but is you make a big signing.
This conversation could get really weird and out of context.
You've got to double, triple, quadruple, quintuple, 9 times down on your plan. You can't go to a certain point and then stop. That's
okay. I think Rodon was exactly that. And if we're talking about left field, there's just, there are not a ton of options that fall into that.
Well,
bucket.
What if there's a trade opportunity mid-season for a left fielder, Hap or something like that would add $6 million, $8 million to the payroll, which bumps them over.
I think they would. I think they're pot committed at this point for that. I think that they will do that. Yeah.
Good. That's what I'm saying. Doesn't have to be now.
They've shown us that they're going to. They
what
will
I'm
do
saying
that because,
is,
again,
it doesn't have to be now. Yeah. But at some point this season, if we hear, well, the Yankees don't want to make this move because of the top luxury tax penalty, I'm going to be mad.
Okay, we'll expect to hear it because that's what beat reporters are paid to do, make you mad and make you talk about the negativity around the New York Yankees because that's, as we know, New York fans thrive in that. we love looking at that stuff. So it will come up. But I do think that they're committed.
This next one for Garrett Cole, finish games, be a top 5 pitcher in baseball. Last year, he was the 23rd best starting pitcher in baseball, and that's just simply not good enough.
Finish games, bottom line. That's it. That's the biggest thing. Bold capital letters, finish games. He's been good, up until 5th, 6th inning. And then all of a sudden we see this guy give up a 3-run home run. I almost said a 4-run home run, a 3-run home run,
a grand slam home,
4-run home run. Yeah. All of these things. He needs to finish the games.
Can I add an impromptu resolution? Every announcer out there, don't call it a grand slam home run. It's redundant.
A grand slam, call it. Okay, you want them to call it a 4-run home run?
That's better than a grand slam home run. Yes.
Okay. Finish games. Be the dominant alpha that you should be, and possibly change your voice.
He needs to be a top 5 pitcher in baseball. The top 5 starting pitchers in baseball last year were Nola Rodon, great. He's a Yankee now. Verlander, Alcantara, and Gausman. There's no reason Garrett Cole is not in that top 5.
No. If Gausman's there ahead of you, you should make that a personal vendetta.
Yeah. DJ LeMahieu, don't be a hero in the first half. We need you healthy for the second half. Like you talked about, the regular season, you got time now. The Yankees need him to be right, healthy, and back to performing. Maybe not at the MVP type level he was in 2019 to 2020, but he needs to be better than a 265 hitter, which he's been the last 2 seasons, which I know have had injuries, which is why he needs to get healthy. He needs to get right and back for the second half of the season into the postseason.
Yes. And if there's anything that, obviously he's right now not going to have surgery, which is, I think positive news considering what the doctors have been looking at. They believe that he can fully recover without having surgery, or the outcome is better. Hopefully that outlook is like, okay, he can come back even if with surgery. He'll be at 85% tops. Without surgery, still maybe 85%. And I just hope that's not the case. You know what I'm saying? Like where they're looking at a similar outcome with or without surgery, and we're still going to be dealing with this. Because I think that's still on the table, but I'm hopeful.
We got one for Glaber.
He's such a dynamic player.
We got one for Glaber, and it's be consistent, but also be good. First half of the year last year, 268 hitter, 325 OBP, 484 slugging. He was like a fringe all-star candidate. The second half of the season, he plummeted to a 243 hitter, a 292 on-base percentage, and a 410 slugging. You cannot be a starting player with a below 300 on-base percentage.
I love the be consistent, but in parentheses, but be good.
Well, don't be consistently
not
bad.
bad consistent.
Don't be consistently
not
bad
consistent. Yeah, we don't want bad consistent. That's just bad.
Yeah. Joey Gallo was consistent.
He was very consistent. That's true. One swing plane the whole way through.
He might be
And
the most consistent hitter in Major League Baseball history.
That's true. You can make an argument that Joey Gallo is the most consistent hitter in baseball. I loved when we were talking with Bloomer, the Astros.
Blummer.
Blummer, the Astros Bloomer. He's a late bloomer in the media world. He is a they saw the same thing, when they're watching him out in Texas, which I think is hilarious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so be consistent, but also be good. This one is, let's not punt any more games in the postseason like they did in ALCS Game 1 against the Astros. Any comments?
So we can punt in the regular season, not.
I mean, punting in the regular season, I'm at the point where it's like, okay, Aaron Judge is going to sit on the getaway day with the off day the next day. Yep, I get it. Fine.
That's not punting in the regular season.
No, but you try.
That's load management.
It's load management, but you try.
It's
you
load
try it out
management.
all on.
Let's just call it what it is. The appropriate name for punting in the regular season
is load management. But then you're going to get getaway days.
Oh, thank you for. I'm glad you're.
You're gonna get getaway days with Aaron Hicks hitting third, right? So it's like, well, what is that if that's not a punt game?
Yes, I agree. But don't punt in the postseason. I mean, when you roll out, assuming healthy, and we have a starting five, or give me the best four at the time that the Yankees currently have on their roster, and you're going into, there should be no reason to do that, because the pitching gives you an opportunity to win every single day, like at a high level.
Yeah. This one is for the Yankees, but also Major League Baseball in general, because we saw it in the postseason, and it's make quicker decisions on rain delays and rainouts. There's nothing more frustrating than the fact that it's going to be raining until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Susan Waldman's on the radio with her weather app being like, there's no chance we're playing this game, and yet everyone's still sitting in the stands, and it's 9:15 at night, and we're just like, what the hell are we doing here?
Yeah, think about the people, please. Nobody wants to go out there and pay $40 for parking, $50 for parking, and then go into the stadium for what they know. They know damn well it's going to get rained out, but they have to be there anyway, just for that one little chance that it's not going to. But they know in their heart of hearts that it is. They're eating chicken buckets. They're getting, $14 beers, and they're paying the parking, and they're doing it with a smile on their face, because that's we love baseball. We will show up. We love baseball. But you know what? Think about us. Help us out. Help the people out and make the call early.
What if?
And all the people that are working at the stadium too. It's not fun for anybody.
Yeah. No, I mean, the people at the stadium, I mean, that's got to be like, they cannot close up the gates in the concessions fast enough at the stadium when it hits the 7th. Nope, beer's closed. Yeah, sorry, get out of here.
You're losing fingers if your hands are on the bar with those cages coming down.
All right, and then the last one, obviously, yet again, it's to win the World Series.
But don't forget about that one.
No, that's the most important one.
Yeah. Maybe we should move that to the top next time, so that they just didn't get to the bottom of the list, because people's attention spans these days are closer to 20% than 100%. So we should move that to the top.
Anything else anyone have off the top of their head that they want to add for resolutions? I think this is a really solid list.
I really think the most important one here, that's aside from just performance, is the commitment to who you believe is going to be the guy.
Shortstop.
And like, I'm staring at shortstop.
Yeah.
But also if left field doesn't, I know we could talk about left field when there's a little bit more time and a little bit more actual tangible information about who's available, rather than us just pulling random dudes out and trying to talk ourselves into them. That's kind of what's happening right now. But if left field via trade does not become a real thing, and does not become a very clear starter that will help this team, and Cabrera is the guy that we're dicking around with in left field, commit there too. Because what we've seen with a guy like that is he can play multiple positions. But if you lock him in on one position, there are plenty of guys that can play multiple positions on this team. We don't need him to be a utility guy. They really don't. There are other options. You could even bring in a guy off the street to be more of a utility guy. But a young guy like that, if left field is not, left field has been a problem for a very long time for the New York Yankees. Put him there. He's got the talent. He's got the ability to learn new positions, and he's got the athleticism to I think, be a good defender out there. He just needs more reps.
Who's the last left fielder the Yankees have had?
That's been very good.
Yeah. Who's the last good left fielder they've had? It's probably Hideki Matsui.
was going to say Melky Cabrera, but
I mean, because Brett Gardner was center field, left field. He was like a
Yeah.
hybrid guy. So it's like you got to go back a long way. Left field's always, but even in the '90s, left field was a rotating position. Like they never had. I mean, it's fine. It's like, but that's why it's left field.
when Matsui was there,
Johnny
he was left fielder.
Yeah, but he was a center
Davis was a
fielder
center
when
fielder.
when they signed him. He was a center
No,
fielder.
but he didn't play center field with the Yankees. He was a left fielder.
He's got a real left fielder's
Johnny
arm.
Damon played center field the first 2
Did he?
years that he was.
Yeah,
with the
but like,
Yankees.
Yeah.
but like when it mattered, like they won the World Series, he was the left fielder.
Yes, but in when did they sign him? 06, 07? Even
07.
probably 08, he was a center fielder, and then they moved him over
Yeah.
to left when Melky and it was Melky and Gardner in center in 09, right? It's like
Mhm.
they didn't have a center fielder
They
in
didn't have a
09
center
and they won the
fielder.
World Series. I just think it's less important to have to commit to somebody in left field, especially when the options are Cabrera and Hicks, which are probably going to rotate around anyway. You cannot be dicking around at shortstop. That's just too important. It's too key of a position, especially when you have an elite prospect in Volpe and another elite prospect in Peraza as options there. You can't be wishy-washy there. You got to commit at shortstop. Left field, I'm less I don't care if you're flipping around in left field.
It's more of a mentality with who you're rolling out there and allowing a guy to really settle into something. And I think with the young guy, I think that's the more important piece. Like I agree with you that shortstop's the more impactful and important position and one that they have to lock in on. But it's the same. It's the same for a young player, going out there and trying to be the best guy. Like create that lane for him. If there's no left fielder and he has the ability to be a long-term left fielder because he does have the talent, we'll see if he develops into what could be a corner outfielder. But commit to it. Like put him out there, get him the reps. Because if you don't have the reps, then you're not going to improve.
Do you guys remember Bubba Crosby?
Of course, I remember Bubba Crosby.
Remember that segment we were going to do where we're just like,
He came up as a center fielder also.
That's why I brought him up. Remember that segment we were going to do for Logan, just like educating him on random shit from like the 90s and the 2000s? Like Bubba
Logan's
Crosby.
history lesson.
Kevin Moss.
Bubba Crosby
Kevin Moss.
played way too many games in center field for the Yankees. way
Kevin
too
Moss
many games.
was Aaron Judge before Aaron Judge was Aaron Judge.
I'm going to look up Bubba Crosby right now, how many games he played in center field. Oh my God. Oh my God.
A lot.
A lot. He played so many games for the Yankees. I'm going to his fielding. He played in 2005.
Was that at the time where they forgot that Bernie Williams was a real person?
Well, 2005, Bernie
didn't forget.
was
They
still
just
there.
ignored Bernie Williams
They
as a real
started
person?
ignoring Bernie Williams, yeah.
For Bubba
in
Crosby,
2005, Bubba Crosby played significant time in the Yankees outfield. He played 67 games in the outfield total, and he started 12 games in center, but he played 41 in center, so he probably went in for defense a lot. It's just like
Defensive
his
replacement.
games played were off the, like 55 games in 2004, 76 in 2005, 65 in 2006. Bubba Crosby played 205 games for the Yankees in the mid 2000s.
51 OPS plus.
He was a good little player.
He was, and then they brought up like Brett Gardner, and I'm just like, this is just Bubba Crosby. Like, what are we doing? And then Brett Gardner turned into a really good player, but it's
Disrespectful.
Like, I know, but when Brett Gardner was called up, you're like, that's Bubba Crosby. Same thing. That's Bubba Crosby. Head shaped a little bit weirder.
Much faster.
I don't know. And Bubba Crosby was speedy. I mean, he had to be. How else is
He was
Bubba
fast.
Crosby making it to the major
squatty
leagues?
legs.
Not fast.
Squatty legs. He was a guy that you could put him in multiple.
Do you know some of the
positions
most
in the outfield?
jarring pictures?
You scrap
Some of the most jarring pictures on the internet are Brett Gardner with hair.
the ones where he's like in front of the actual plane.
Where he's in like
Those early
he's in his
ones?
dad's suit and he's got hair in front of a private jet. You're like, what's going on here? Very weird pictures.
Those are great pictures. They're fantastic pictures, actually.
All right. Anything else you want to touch on? Couple of news items. Licky DFA'd ended up trading to the Braves for a couple prospects.
Billy
what
McKinney's
was-
back. Maybe he's our answer to left field. Former first round pick, brought over in the Glaber trade from Chicago, was drafted I think by Oakland, but went to the Cubs, brought over in the Glaber trade. So reunited, maybe brothers in arms over here. Coming back and he's going to play in AAA. But he's a good veteran guy.
What was the left field thing you want to talk about? Was it just committing? Was that your left field take?
We were looking at just the different options that are there, and we were throwing out lots of Jerickson Profar is out there, had a resurgence in a year. last year with the Padres. I did a fun, like my favorite tool, I think, on Baseball Reference is the player comparison. Yeah, so you can see direct comparisons of the guys, and I put him next to Brian Reynolds from his 2022 season, and not that different, like really not that different. Defensively, Reynolds, is a superior player. I don't think anybody's going to argue that, but offensively, not that different.
We were talking about this.
In fact, lower strikeout percentage. Jerks a profile, and you could argue that maybe one, he got into a different situation, and also he got into a much better lineup, so he was getting pitched to more, where he wasn't buried in some random line at Oakland or Texas. Like he's with San Diego, probably got a lot more pitches and was able to handle it, because he's always been a guy that people have expected more results from. He's always been a guy that has been talked about as talent, just never really got to that point. I think injuries played a part to that, but sneaky possibility.
Would you be excited about Jurickson Profar, or would you have to talk yourself into it?
I'm talking myself into every one of
these. That's what we were talking about last week. It's like everyone not named Brian Reynolds at this point, you've got to talk yourself into. And if you're talking yourself into,
you got to talk me into Brian Reynolds now too, to be honest. Like honestly,
come on.
No, I'm serious, because
silly.
of it's not silly. We have a center fielder right now. Harrison Bader is an all-world defender.
But he might be gone next year. This is insurance for future center field, and it makes your outfield championship caliber with Bader, Reynolds, Judge. That's a championship caliber outfield. Right now, it is not.
I think what Pittsburgh is asking for is absolutely ludicrous for that player.
That's true. So if you're trading too much away for Reynolds, that could sour it a little bit, but I would still be very excited about Reynolds.
A lot of it. These are not prospects that are a ways away. We're talking about a guy like Anthony Volpe, who should be the next shortstop of the New York Yankees.
I don't think Volpe.
And right now.
No, Volpe's not the guy getting traded for Reynolds. I think you'd be trading Dominguez and basically a bunch of pitching prospects. Or you're doing a 3-team trade where you're trading top prospects to another team, and then pitching is going back to Pittsburgh. I mean, come on. Every Yankees fan should be excited if they trade for Brian Reynolds, but you got to talk yourself into all of those other options where it's like, well, is this better than if we just give Cabrera a chance and Hicks, a couple days a week? Like, is that better? It's like, probably, but not definitely.
If you can get Brian Reynolds without giving up Volpe, do it.
Okay.
That's the only guy I don't want. Like Dominguez, even I think that he's one of these he's sexy on Instagram and a lot of other and he may be a good player, but I think he's probably at his sexiest right now.
Doing a lot of Instagram creeping.
No, I mean more of he's like a combine guy, in football. Like he shows well on tape. He's a specimen. He's that guy. He very well could be a very good player. It's just the odds of him being a very good player when you look at how prospects are, not in his favor.
All right. That's going to wrap up the episode. New Year's resolutions. Hope you guys enjoyed them all. Tweet at YankeesPodcast what your New Year's resolution is for the 2023 Yankees. We'll give it a retweet, and if they're good, we'll mention them on next week's episode. Happy New Year, everybody. You've got how many days left? What did I say? The 13th. You've got like a week and a half left.
16 more days. Yep.
Math.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 16 more at least.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, because you're going to piss me off on the 17th. Got it. Well, you've got until the 13th at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Friday, when East Coast working hours are over. So if you're on the West Coast and it's
get it in early.
You got to get it in early.
Don't forget, set an alarm.
Yeah, 3 o'clock West Coast time. No, you're not wishing anyone a Happy New Year. East Coast New Year is what everyone cares about anyway. So 5 p.m. January 13th Eastern Time is when you can wish everyone.
Or commit to it and set that alarm for Tuesday at 3 o'clock.
Got it. We will talk to you guys next week.